in the heart of the verdant highlands of West Africa. Where rolling hills embraced emerald valleys and ancient trees whispered stories of generations past, there lived a woman named Amara. Her village of Ades nestled between mountain ranges. A place where tradition ran as deep as the roots of the oldest baobab trees and where community was the lifeblood of existence. Amara was not like the other women of her village. From a young age, she carried herself with a quiet dignity that both intrigued and challenged those around her. Her eyes, deep and thoughtful, seemed to hold wisdom beyond her years. Her mother, Nkechi, a respected elder in the community, often spoke of how Amara was different. She was not merely waiting for life to happen, but was actively shaping her own destiny. The women of Ades would gather under the large mango tree in the village center, their colorful wraps rustling like leaves in the gentle breeze, and they would discuss Amara. Some whispered with concern, others with admiration. "She is too proud," some would say. "She is waiting for a fantasy," others would murmur. But Amara remained unaffected by their gossip, her spirit unbroken and her resolve unwavering. Her father, Chikwudi, a respected elder and former warrior, understood his daughter better than most. He had seen the fire in her spirit, reminiscent of the legendary women warriors who had defended their lands generations ago. While other fathers might have pressured their daughters to accept the first suitable marriage proposal, Chikwudi trusted his daughter's judgment. As the years passed, suitors from near and far sought Amara's hand in marriage. They came with promises of wealth, status, and security. Some were young men from neighboring villages, strong and handsome, with herds of cattle and fertile lands. Others were merchants who had traveled great distances, bringing exotic gifts and tales of faraway lands. There was Kwesi, a wealthy trader whose caravan stretched across multiple kingdoms. He arrived with silk from distant lands, gold trinkets, and promises of a life of luxury. His caravan was impressive, his wealth undeniable. But when he spoke to Amara, his words rang hollow. He saw her as a possession to be acquired, a trophy to enhance his status. Then came Alumide, a warrior from a coastal tribe, his body marked with tribal scars that told stories of battles won. He spoke of his prowess in combat, of the lands he had conquered. But when Amara looked into his eyes, she saw only conquest, not love, not partnership, not understanding. Another suitor, Adebayo, was a learned man, educated in the mission schools, wearing crisp white shirts and speaking of modernization. He saw Amara as someone to be molded, to be transformed according to his vision of a perfect wife. But Amara knew she was not clay to be shaped by another's hands. With each suitor, Amara was gracious but firm. She would listen to their proposals, hear their words, but her response was always the same. "My heart is not a marketplace," she would say, her voice soft yet strong. "Love is not a transaction. It is a sacred connection that transcends mere convenience or societal expectations." Her mother would sometimes worry. "Daughter," Nkechi would say, "not all love announces itself with thunderous fanfare. Sometimes it arrives quietly, like the morning dew." Amara would smile, understanding her mother's concern but holding steadfast to her belief. "When love comes," she would respond, "it will recognize me as I will recognize it. Until then, I will choose myself." Her work in the village kept her fulfilled. She was not just waiting, she was living. She was a skilled weaver, her textiles sought after for their intricate patterns and vibrant colors. Each thread she wove told a story, of resilience, of beauty, of tradition intertwined with individual spirit. She was also a respected healer, learning the ancient medicinal practices from her grandmother. People would come from distant villages seeking her knowledge of herbs, her understanding of healing that went beyond physical ailments and touched the spirit. As seasons changed and years passed, Amara's reputation grew. She was no longer just the woman who refused marriage, but a respected figure in her own right. Her independence was not a weakness but a strength that commanded respect. And then, on a day when the air was heavy with the promise of rain, he arrived. The prince was unlike any suitor who had come before. His name was Kamau, from a distant kingdom known for its rich cultural heritage and progressive leadership. He had heard tales of Amara, not just rumors of her beauty, but stories of her spirit, her wisdom, her uncompromising nature. When Kamau entered the village, it was not with pomp or show. He came quietly, accompanied by a small, respectful entourage. His demeanor was different. Where other suitors had come with demands and expectations, he came with curiosity and genuine respect. Their first meeting was not a grand affair. It happened in the marketplace, where Amara was selling her woven textiles. Kamau was drawn not just to her physical beauty, but to the way she interacted with the people around her, with kindness, with wisdom, with a profound understanding of human connection. They spoke, first casually, then with increasing depth. Kamau did not try to impress Amara with tales of his wealth or status. Instead, he spoke of his vision for his people, of education, of preserving tradition while embracing progress. He listened to her, truly listened, not just to her words, but to the spaces between her words. Amara saw in Kamau something she had not seen in any previous suitor, a true partner. Not a master, not a subject to be controlled, but a companion who would walk beside her, not in front or behind. Their courtship was unconventional. They would spend hours discussing philosophy, sharing stories, challenging each other's perspectives. It was a meeting of minds before it became a union of hearts. When Kamau formally proposed, it was not a proposal of ownership, but of partnership. "I do not want to possess you," he told her. "I want to journey with you. To learn from you. To grow with you." Their wedding was a celebration that went beyond the traditional ceremonies. It was a testament to a union built on mutual respect, understanding, and genuine love. The entire region came to witness this extraordinary marriage, a union that challenged old notions and celebrated individual spirit. Years later, Amara and Kamau would be remembered not just as royalty, but as leaders who transformed their communities. They established schools, supported women's education, and created systems that valued individual potential over rigid societal norms. And Amara's weight, her unwavering belief in true love, had been worth every moment of patience. In the stories told by elders under starlit skies, Amara became more than a person. She became a symbol of hope, of patience, of the unbreakable spirit that resides in those who dare to honor themselves first. Her legacy was not just in the children she would bear, or the kingdom she would help lead, but in the countless young women who would hear her story and understand that their worth was not determined by marriage, but by the strength of their character and the depth of their dreams. In the years following their marriage, Amara and Kamau faced challenges that would test the very foundation of their relationship. Their union, celebrated as a beacon of hope, was about to be challenged by forces both external and internal. The first major test came 3 years into their marriage, when a devastating drought threatened their entire region. While other royal couples might have remained safely in their palace, Amara and Kamau chose a different path. "We must walk with our people," Kamau would say, and Amara would nod in agreement. They traveled from village to village, not as distant rulers, but as active participants in the community's struggle. Amara's knowledge of herbal medicine and sustainable agriculture became their greatest weapon against the impending famine. Dear viewers, if you were facing a severe drought, what 3 items would you bring to help your community survive? Her innovative water conservation techniques, learned from her grandmother's teachings, became a lifeline. She showed communities how to dig small water catchment areas, use traditional clay pots for minimal water loss, cultivate drought-resistant crops. Their greatest challenge came unexpectedly. Despite years of a loving marriage, they had not been blessed with children. In a society that placed immense value on lineage, this became a source of whispers and subtle criticisms. Kamau's royal advisors began to pressure him subtly. "A prince needs an heir," they would suggest, their words laden with traditional expectations. But Kamau would simply look at Amara, their hands intertwined, and say, "Our legacy is not just in blood, but in the lives we touch." If you were Amara, how would you respond to the societal pressure of not having children? Turning their personal challenge into a broader mission, Amara and Kamau began to transform their approach to community leadership. They established a revolutionary education system that would become their true legacy. What began as a small school in Amara's home village grew into a transformative educational institution. Its unique approach included education for girls and boys equally, practical skills alongside academic learning, preservation of traditional knowledge combined with modern techniques, scholarships for children from the poorest families. If you could design a school curriculum that blends traditional wisdom with modern knowledge, what 3 key subjects would you include? Their progressive approach didn't come without resistance. Conservative leaders from neighboring kingdoms began to view their model as a threat to traditional power structures. A critical moment came when a coalition of traditional chiefs attempted to undermine their leadership. Instead of responding with force, Amara devised a brilliant strategy. She organized a grand gathering, inviting leaders from all regions. Instead of confrontation, she used the power of storytelling and dialogue. She shared the success stories of their educational and agricultural initiatives, showing how their approach benefited everyone. How would you bridge a conflict between traditional leaders and progressive thinkers? Just when they had fully embraced their role as community leaders and educators, life presented them with an unexpected blessing. During a visit to a remote village, they encountered 2 orphan children, a boy and a girl, who had demonstrated extraordinary resilience during the previous drought. Their intelligence, compassion, and spirit reminded Amara and Kamau of themselves. After careful consideration and conversations with the village elders, they made a decision that would change their lives forever. They would adopt these children, not as royal heirs, but as true members of their family. If you could choose how to build a family, what would be most important to you? Biological connection, shared values, or shared experiences? Years later, their adopted children, Zara and Kwesi, would become renowned leaders in their own right. They carried forward the legacy of choice, of education, of seeing beyond traditional boundaries. Amara would often tell them, family is not about blood. It's about understanding, respect, and the courage to love unconditionally. Their story became more than a personal journey. It became a testament to the power of individual choice, community building, and the extraordinary potential that emerges when people dare to think differently. Reflect on a moment in your life when you chose a path different from what was expected. What did you learn? As the sun would set over their lands, casting golden light on the learning center, on the thriving fields, on the faces of children who now had opportunities their parents could never have imagined, Amara would smile. Her wait had been worth it. Not just for a husband, but for a life of purpose, of meaning, of true partnership. As Zara and Kwesi grew, they became living embodiments of their parents' philosophy, bridging traditional wisdom with progressive thought. Zara, with her mother's intuitive healing skills, became a renowned medical practitioner, while Kwesi developed innovative agricultural techniques that would transform farming across multiple regions. The Adiz Learning Center expanded, becoming a beacon of hope for communities far beyond their original kingdom. What had started as a small initiative now attracted scholars, educators, and innovators from across the continent. But greatness often attracts opposition. As Amara and Kamau's influence grew, so did the resistance from conservative factions who saw their progressive approach as a threat to traditional power structures. A coalition of rival kingdoms, threatened by the success of the Adiz model, began to plot against them. They spread rumors, attempted to undermine their political alliances, and sought to discredit their educational and social reforms. The turning point came during a critical gathering of regional leaders. Amara, now in her late 50s, stood before the Council of Elders, a mix of traditional chiefs, regional leaders, and emerging young politicians. Her presence was commanding. Years of wisdom etched lines around her eyes, but her spirit remained as fierce and uncompromising as ever. She spoke not with anger, but with a profound understanding that challenged everyone present. Our strength, she began, her voice carrying across the gathered crowd, lies not in resisting change, but in guiding it. We are not breaking traditions, we are evolving them. She shared stories. Stories of young girls who had become doctors, of farmers who had transformed barren lands, of communities that had risen above poverty through education and innovative thinking. The most vocal opponent was Chief Adebayo, a conservative leader from a neighboring kingdom. He stood, his traditional attire a stark contrast to the more modern dress of younger leaders. "Your methods destroy our way of life," he challenged. "You teach our children to question, to challenge, to dream beyond their stations." Amara's response was measured. "And is that not the greatest gift we can give to any generation? The ability to think, to question, to imagine?" That evening, as the council discussions continued, Zara made a discovery that would change everything. Hidden in the royal archives, she found a series of historical documents that revealed a long-forgotten truth about the region's history, a truth that would challenge everything the conservative leaders believed. The documents spoke of ancient female leaders who were scientists, philosophers, and strategic thinkers. They revealed that the rigid gender roles the conservative leaders defended were actually a relatively recent construct, imposed during colonial times. Kwesi, with his skills in historical research and documentation, worked with Zara to verify and prepare the documents. They approached their parents, understanding the potential impact of their discovery. Kamau looked at Amara, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "Your patience," he said, "has always been your greatest strength." During the final day of the council, Zara and Kwesi presented their findings. The room fell silent as centuries-old misconceptions were systematically dismantled. Chief Adebayo, the most vocal critic, found himself confronted with irrefutable historical evidence. His arguments crumbled not through confrontation, but through knowledge. The council's final resolution was unprecedented. They agreed to establish a comprehensive historical research initiative, reform educational curricula to include more diverse historical narratives, create platforms for intergenerational and intercommunity dialogues. Amara watched, not with triumph, but with a deep sense of understanding. Change was not about winning or losing, but about continuous learning and growth. That night, as the family gathered in their private quarters, Amara reflected on her journey. From the young woman who had waited for true love, to the leader who had transformed an entire region's understanding of potential. "We are not finished," she told her children. "We are simply continuing a conversation started by our ancestors, and which will be continued by generations yet to come." Kamau squeezed her hand. Their love, which had begun with mutual respect and understanding, had become a catalyst for broader societal transformation. As the sun set over the lands they had helped reshape, Amara understood that legacy was not about grand monuments or historical markers. It was about the small, consistent choices made with integrity, compassion, and vision. Her wait for true love had been more than a personal journey. It had been the beginning of a movement, a reimagining of what was possible when people dared to see beyond existing boundaries. As years turned into decades, Amara became more than a leader, she became a living legend. Her hair, now completely silver, was a crown of wisdom that commanded respect from the youngest child to the eldest elder. The Adiz Learning Center had grown beyond anyone's wildest imagination. What had started as a small school now stood as a renowned institution, attracting scholars and students from across the continent and beyond. Its model of education, blending traditional knowledge with innovative thinking, had become In her 70th year, Amara faced her most profound challenge. A global pandemic threatened the region, challenging everything they had built. While younger leaders panicked, Amara drew upon generations of collective wisdom. She organized a response that would become legendary. Combining traditional healing practices with modern medical knowledge, she helped her community not just survive, but thrive during the crisis. Zara, now a renowned medical researcher, worked alongside her mother. Together, they developed community-based healthcare strategies that saved thousands of lives. Their approach was revolutionary. It wasn't about fighting the disease, but about building community resilience. Healing, Amara would often say, is not just about curing an illness. It's about strengthening the entire ecosystem of life. On her 75th birthday, leaders from across the continent gathered to honor Amara. But true to her nature, she turned the celebration into a working conference, focusing on future challenges and opportunities. Kamau, now slightly stooped but still regal, stood by her side. Their love had only deepened with time, a partnership that had transformed an entire region. It was during this gathering that Amara delivered what would become her most memorable speech. "My life has been a journey of waiting, not passive waiting, but active preparation. I waited not for life to happen to me, but for the moment to create meaningful change. True power lies not in controlling others, but in empowering them to discover their own potential." Her words resonated beyond the conference hall, spreading like wildfire across communities, universities, and leadership circles. That evening, as the sun set over the lands they had helped reshape, Amara and Kamau sat together, their hands intertwined as they had been decades ago. "Do you remember," Kamau asked, "when you first refused all those suitors?" Amara laughed, a sound that still held the music of her younger years. "I was waiting for you," she replied. "Not just as a husband, but as a partner in transformation." As her health began to decline, Amara made one final decision. She established a foundation that would continue the work of the Addis Learning Center, ensuring that her vision would outlive her. Her children, Zara and Kwesi, would lead this foundation. But her real legacy was not an institution, it was the countless lives she had touched, the minds she had opened, the potential she had unleashed. On a quiet morning, with the first light of dawn painting the sky, Amara took her final breath. Surrounded by her family, her community, her life's work visible in every direction, she passed peacefully. News of her passing spread quickly, but it was not a message of mourning. Instead, communities celebrated a life of extraordinary impact. In villages, cities, and learning centers across the region, people shared stories. Not just of Amara's achievements, but of how she had changed their understanding of what was possible. Her adopted children continued her work. Zara expanded healthcare initiatives, while Kwesi developed sustainable agricultural programs that would feed millions. Kamau, in his final years, would often be found at the Addis Learning Center, sharing stories, keeping Amara's spirit alive. Years later, young girls would hear the story of Amara, the woman who waited, not in passive silence, but in active preparation. Who understood that true love, true leadership, was about seeing the potential in others and helping them grow. Her wait had never been about finding a husband. It had been about finding a purpose. And in that purpose, she had changed the world.